Okay, President Corzo, go ahead.
Okay, thank you everyone. We are calling to order at 6:35 p.m. and we will begin with a roll call. Trustee Chin?
Yes, here.
Trustee Proctor? Sorry, the order is different now. So
I'm here.
Okay. Trustee Warren?
Here.
Trustee Watkins?
Here.
Okay, and I'm here as well. Let the record reflect all trustees are in attendance. And moving on to approval of agenda December 14th, 2020.
Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Okay,
I'll
so a
second.
second.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Roll call vote, Trustee Chin.
Yes.
Okay, Trustee Proctor,
Yes.
Trustee Warren,
Yes.
Trustee Watkins,
Yes.
and a yes from me, the motion carries. And moving on to, and I'm now recessing our regular meeting and convening our annual organizational meeting. And we will begin our ceremonial swearing in of new trustees.
Yes, so tonight we'd like to start actually with you, Noelia, if you're ready. I think you have a very special guest who's going to do this ceremonial swearing in for you. So would you like to introduce your guest?
Sure. My son will be swearing me in tonight. His name is Mike Alvarado Corzo, and there he is.
It's nice to see Mike. All right, well, I think he has the oath of office and he may begin.
He does, and he's been practicing.
Anytime you're ready, Mike, you can unmute and you can start.
I, Noelia Corzo,
I, Noelia Corzo,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign, and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of California,
and the Constitution of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Thank you, my love.
Thank you so much. That was lovely. Welcome aboard, Noelia Corzo, for a second term. And
Thank you so
now
much.
we'll turn to Lisa Warren. Now, Lisa is new to our board, and Lisa also has someone very special that she would like to ask to come and conduct the ceremonial swearing in, oath of office, and that is Christina Haley, her principal. So Lisa, did you want to introduce Christina, and are we going to be able to see Christina?
Sure.
I'm trying to unmute my
So
Okay.
Christina and I
There we go.
we go way back to when my oldest was in preschool, and we actually met for the very first time at a transitional IEP. And then when my son Logan started at Park, pretty much I think we bonded over the garden, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Um,
Definitely.
and then we've been working together on just creating the park community. And I'm very well known to come into her office going, Christina, what if we do this? What if we do that? And sometimes she has to kind of like, okay, Lisa, let's calm down just a little bit.
Well,
So
it sounds
yeah,
like you have built up a relationship over very many years. And so, Christina Haley, would you like to do the ceremonial oath of office for Lisa Warren?
Yes, absolutely. And this is new for me, but I learned from Mike and I feel so much better, literally. I'm like, okay, I'll just do what he just did. He's so good. So here we go. I, Lisa Warren,
I, Lisa Warren,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of California,
and the Constitution of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
And with that, we welcome you aboard, Lisa Warren, for a term with the Board of
Thank you.
Trustees. Congratulations. We look forward to
Thanks.
working with you.
And
And
I with
now-
everybody else.
And now we move to our third trustee, and that is Shara Watkins. And it is my great honor and pleasure to conduct this ceremonial oath of office for Shara Watkins as she enters her second term on the San Mateo Foster City School Board. So Shara Watkins, will you repeat after me? I, Shara Watkins, do solemnly swear
I, Charlotte Watkins, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of California,
and the Constitution of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you, Shara Watkins. We welcome you for your second term.
Thank you.
And so this concludes our ceremonial oath of office process. So all of you, of course, were sworn in already, but we do it here again with special members of the community and people you've met through your work. So welcome aboard, everyone. I will now move it back to Noelia Corzo, as she is going to begin our election of officers.
Thank you. So, moving on to election of officers. Okay. So I would like to nominate Trustee Chin as our new board president.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, roll call vote, Trustee Chin.
I guess I'll abstain,
Oh,
right?
okay. So why don't I go first now? Because I'm,
Sure.
if we're going alphabetical now, I'll go first. I vote yes. Trustee Proctor,
Yes.
Trustee Warren,
Yes.
and Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Okay. Welcome, new president.
Thank you. I'm assuming that that do we continue on with, well, well, okay. I would like to nominate for vice president Trustee Proctor.
I will
And
second. Go ahead.
no, you got it. You did the second. Sorry. Am I still
Yeah.
I would go ahead until we finish
okay?
this item.
Okay, roll call vote. Trustee Chin,
Yes.
a yes from me. Trustee Proctor will abstain. Okay, Trustee Warren
Yes.
and Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Okay. We have a new board vice president. And let's see.
I would like to make a nomination for clerk, if that's okay. I'd like to nominate Trustee Watkins.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call vote. Trustee Chin,
Yes.
a yes. Trustee Proctor,
Yes.
Trustee Warren,
Yes.
and Trustee Watkins.
I feel like in the past, haven't we said yes? Like you can say yes to yourself. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I should follow the trend now and abstain. I'm
Do it, girl.
gonna just say yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Okay. I believe that concludes our election of officers. No.
Actually, you have a trustee representative, and this is the person that goes to those meetings related to reorganization. Sometimes you have to go in a year, sometimes you never have to go, but we do have to have someone who is elected from the board to attend those. So if there's anyone who's interested in the trustee representative position or a nominee for it.
I've done it already, so I'll pass. Trustee Chin, I think did you do it last year?
I think I did, but I don't think we met. So if you would like to pass, then I will nominate Trustee Warren as the trustee representative for the school board.
Okay.
I second. It's like one meeting. When I went, it was one meeting. Roll
Okay.
call vote. Trustee Chin.
Yes.
Okay, yes from me. Trustee Proctor.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
I'll abstain.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Okay, we have a new rep. And that concludes our election of officers. And so I will hand over the imaginary gavel to our new president for his appointments by the president.
I just want to say thank you, everyone, for voting for me. And I also really just want to thank outgoing President Corzo. I joked around earlier and said, you know, because of COVID and everything, I think you have had probably twice or 3 times as many meetings as a board president than any other normal time. And I think that because of your leadership, you know, we are better off and than where we would have been, especially during these crazy times, unprecedented times. So I just want to thank you. I know things were up and down and they're still up and down, but I do want to thank you for your leadership. So.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll move on to appointments by the president. So I'm about to make the liaison appointments. Prior to making the appointments, I just wanted to know, remind everyone, we will be having a governance meeting hopefully in January at some point. But the role of the liaisons, there's generally 4 points and I'm just going to read them. We, for all the committees, we serve as a resource. We observe and listen to the committee to inform board work. We provide a perspective when appropriate. And we also share updates during the board meetings to ensure district alignment. So the idea that, you know, we make these assignments, or I make these assignments, but in reality, we are all one. And so when you go to these committees and you come back, please report stuff that is pertinent and that would affect us directly, just to ensure that we're all aligned. And so that's the intent of the liaisons. Additionally, if for some reason you guys can't make the meetings, please let us know. The idea is that I think that as we mature as a board, the more that we move around, the more depth that we build and more background that we have. So with that, I will appoint the secretary of the board is Dr. Roses, as normal. The legislative representative, I will actually take that position. The liaisons to the San Mateo City Council will be Trustee Watkins and I. The liaison to the Foster City City Council will be Trustee Proctor and I. The liaison to the San Mateo Foster City Education Foundation will be Trustee Proctor. The liaison to the PTA Coordinating Council will be myself. The liaisons to the District Special Education District Advisory Council, otherwise known as CDEC, will be Trustee Corzo and Trustee Warren. The liaison to the Sanctuary Task Force will be Trustee Corzo and Trustee Warren. The liaisons to the Equity Task Force will be Trustee Watkins and Trustee Corzo. The liaison to the Homeroom Committee, which I would love some input after this, but I'd love to rename the committee to Educator Housing, because in general, that's pretty much what it is. But I'd love some input on that renaming, would be Trustee Watkins. The liaison to the Communications Committee will be Trustee Corzo. And then the liaisons to the Labor Management Initiative is going to be Trustee Warren and Trustee Proctor. So I've tried to separate them up. I think everybody has 3 committees. I have one additional one, but I think hopefully that works out for everybody.
There is one that got skipped, the DLAC.
Oh,
Liaison to the District English Language Advisory Council.
I'm sorry, I did miss that. And I do have that down on my list. It's the liaison to the District English Language Advisory Council would be Trustee Corzo and Trustee Proctor. Sorry about that. I think I skipped that. So everyone either has 3 or 4 committees.
I have 5.
Do you? I'm sorry, did I? Then let me rearrange that, because that is, unless we can come back to that.
We can come back to it, it's fine.
Why don't we come back to that? I'm sorry about that. I think I must have.
That's okay.
Yeah. Does anybody have any input on the renaming of the Homeroom Committee? Is that all right? So, okay.
It's
Trustee
fine.
Warren?
Yeah, I think it just sounds more clear. to call it educator housing than homeroom.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good move.
I believe in the past that committee has sort of morphed into the Educator Housing Committee. In the past, there was some legislation that actually dealt with educator housing, but it was always named Homeroom Committee. So
that was Sue Lempert's name
Yes.
for her committee out of Rotary as a joint task force. But I don't think anyone would mind at all if it's educator housing.
thank you.
Okay.
I guess we can always circle back with Sue Lempert.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. With that, I am going to adjourn the annual organization meeting, but I need a motion for that and a vote.
Motion to adjourn the organization reorg meeting.
I second.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins and Trustee Warren. Roll call vote, Trustee Corzo,
Yes.
Trustee Proctor,
Yes.
Trustee Warren,
Yes.
and Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. So we are adjourning the annual organization meeting and will now reconvene to our regularly scheduled meeting. So agenda item 6.1 is public statements. Let me make sure I read this correctly. So public statements related to non-agenda topics. The San Mateo Foster City School Board cannot act upon any matter that has not been included and publicly posted on the agenda, except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. The board may refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and or action where appropriate. So we will now call public comment and let's set it for 3 minutes. Please, Peter.
Okay, so for those who have maybe joined us for the first time, please use the raise your hand function in Zoom in order to make public statements on non-agenda items. And President Chin, we currently have 2 hands. Would you like the time to be 3 minutes?
Yes, please. Thank you,
Okay.
Peter.
We'll do 3 minutes. First will be Julie, and then after Julie will be Chelsea. Julie?
Good evening, everyone. I want to, on behalf of the San Mateo Elementary Teachers Association, extend a warm welcome to Trustee Warren. We are really looking forward to working with you. And I have a request for the board at this meeting. As you know, public comment often goes very late at our regular meetings during this time. And I totally understand the need for limiting public comment. I would request that as a part of the regular board meeting, however, that SMETA and SEA be allowed an opportunity to speak to the board as part of an association report, so that we can fully share with you our perspective and the things that are happening. We're not looking for special treatment, but it is often hard to express all of the perspective we need to express within the 2 minutes. I know the high school has utilized this format, and so just tonight, as you are, organizing yourselves, I would encourage you to think about whether or not that could be included. And I don't want to speak on behalf of CSEA or SMEA, but I would encourage you to reach out and see if they would be interested in this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, next we'll have Chelsea. Chelsea?
Good evening, Board President Chin, Vice President Proctor, trustees, Superintendent Rosas, and staff. My name is Chelsea Bonini, and I want to congratulate Trustee Warren for joining your team. It's very exciting. In my new role as the Area 4 trustee on the San Mateo County Board of Education, I plan to be engaged in conversation and listening sessions with district boards and with our community. So it is my intention to attend your board meetings as frequently as I can and to hopefully engage with you offline as well. I hope that you will find time to attend our county board meetings in a similar liaison fashion, as much of our work coincides. For example, your board presentation last week from, there was a board presentation last week from the SELPA on its work countywide to support the disproportionality compliance, and that was also presented at your meeting. So that would be a co-occurring topic. Our meetings are typically on Wednesdays, so won't usually conflict with your meetings. And the next two meetings, just for your information, are this Wednesday and on January 20th. I hope you will also consider attending the quarterly SELPA governing board meetings, or perhaps to have a SELPA liaison, as the decisions made at those meetings impact your district as they decide on the budget and plan for special education for all districts in the county. Their next meeting is tomorrow morning from 9:30 to 11 a.m. And one of their agenda items is the presentation about special education compliance that was given to the county board last week. So that might also be of interest to you. Their next meeting is March 23rd, 2021, after tomorrow's meeting. Lastly, I really hope that you will consider appointing new members to the SELPA's Community Advisory Committee, the CAC, for the 2021 school year. I'm not sure that any of the current appointees are active at this point. And the SELPA has created some application materials and informational materials about the CAC that might be of interest to you in pursuing some new appointees. So that's available at their site, but I can certainly forward it. And it would also be great if you might consider coming to a CAC meeting in the future. Their next meeting is not until March 3rd. I look forward to working with each of you over the next 4 years toward our mutual vision of excellence and equity in education for all students. And I just want to thank you so much for your work on behalf of the kids in our district. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Chelsea. Next, we have Randy. Randy?
Hi, good evening to the superintendent and the board members. First, I would like to extend my congratulations and my hearty thanks to Lisa Warren for stepping up to take on these duties as board member, and my continued thanks to the already seated board members. The time commitment that you've made is huge. The work that you've put in is huge. I know that Trustee Warren has seen that, and with full knowledge, full disclosure, she has agreed to join you in taking that on. And so I'm really grateful to all of you. So there was just one topic that I wanted to bring up this evening, and it's in response to a comment that one of the trustees made at last Thursday's board meeting. And that was with respect to public comment in general. And that public comment is the mechanism by which you collect data about what the public is thinking and wants you to know about their experience, about their desires. I would just caution you about using this as your exclusive source of data about what folks in the district want. This group that is able to attend board meetings, hang in there through the extent for as long as these board meetings last, is not representative of the entire selection of families and parents out there. There are language barriers, there are job barriers, there are barriers of access for being able to even log in. There are barriers for being able to raise your hand and even step in and make a comment. So please be mindful of who these people are, myself included, who are calling in to to say these things and how representative those things are. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, President Chin, there are no other hands for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. All public statements related to agenda items will be heard on the individual items. We will move on to the proposed consent agenda. There is one item on the agenda.
Make a motion, unless anybody has any comments, make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
I know we can call the roll call vote, but I assume I do need to ask if anyone needs to pull this item for us to talk about. Sorry, just trying to get my feet wet here. Does any public member or any board member or anyone wants to pull this item for a discussion? And if so, please raise your hand. And Peter, if you can let us know.
Okay, President Chin, we have no hands to pull the agenda item for comment.
Great. Thank you. Then we'll continue on with the roll call vote. Trustee Watkins made the motion, Trustee Proctor seconded, and we will do a roll call vote. Trustee Corzo?
Yes.
Trustee Proctor?
Yes.
Trustee Warren?
Yes.
And Trustee Watkins?
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. The consent item has been approved. We will move on to item 8.1, which is our 2021 first interim report.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Thanks for your time tonight. I look forward to sharing some information with you about the first interim. I'm going to share my screen here. Host disabled, Peter, I'll need your help. Host disabled participant share screening. So.
My apologies, Patrick. Go ahead and try one more time.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, thanks everybody. I'm going to walk you through a couple things tonight. In your board packet, you've received a copy of these slides tonight. You also have a copy of the overview, the summary page we gave you for the first interim report. And we also provide you with the SACS report, and included along with the SACS report, there's a written narrative that speaks to a lot of the items that are in these slides as well too. So the slide deck's going to give you kind of a condensed summary of some of that information, and happy to answer questions you might have regarding any of the information we share with you so far. So high level first interim overview, what's the first interim? We're going to do some first interim financial highlights for you tonight too. We're going to do a review of revenue and review of expenditures. And then we're going to talk about multi-year projections and look at some of the ending fund balances and the multi-year projections as well. And then we're talking about next steps from a process perspective from budget development. So again, for the first interim, after we do our adopted budget, this is our opportunity to make changes that have occurred in the budget since the budget was adopted in June. We incorporate recent information into the budget, make general changes. We include the adoption of the prior year carryover as we close the books. We understand what that carryover is. We went some of that with you when we did our unaudited actuals. And we do adjustment of our revenue based on current information, property tax information, other things, donations we incorporate into our revenue. And so some of that's going to be talked about a little bit. We revise our salary expenditures based on actual what we're seeing versus what we had projected, including step and column increases and things like that. And we adjust other expenditures into accounts to reflect the actual versus projected expenses through June 30th of 2021. Okay, so the next couple of slides, we're giving you some first interim financial highlights, talking about since we adopted the budget. And the first bullet, as you'll recall, the state budget adopted their budget after you took formal action on your budget. And so when that occurs after 45 days, if there's significant changes in the state budget, we bring forward to you a 45-day notice of what those changes are. And then technically we incorporate those changes into our first interim. So some of the significant things from the state budget we've captured for you here, which are really the CARES Act funding and some of the special ed funding. So we provide you this information in August timeframe. And we're going to talk a little bit later about some of the details for some of this CARES Act money, because I know there's some interest in understanding what dollars have been spent so far. So this captures for you the 45-day update we provide to you. Again, just as a highlight, we've incorporated this information in the first interim. And there are expiration dates associated with these different sources of funds. And in another few slides, we're talking about the expenditures associated with the funds that expire as of December of 2020. There was some discussion that this set of funds should be permitted to districts to spend them all the way through June of 2021, but it was pulled back to December. So we're going to walk through some of that with you. And then we also want to make sure at first term that our expenditures are aligned with these funds as well too, okay? Next slide, we talk about how the pandemic resulted in dramatic decrease in participation in funding for the annex and preschool programs. And as a result of that, we anticipate depleting our reserves for the annex and preschool programs. And we do that in order to continue to serve our high needs students in our community. And we also redirected expenditures from the annex and preschool to supplemental and learning loss mitigation funds. So we've incorporated that into the first interim. Also, the district anticipates a $350,000 deficit in the child nutrition program, but there are sufficient reserves for that loss to be absorbed. And also we've transportation imposed restrictions may result in the possible need for additional bus drivers, and we're still working through those details. In terms of the actual fund reconciliation in SACs, for Fund 63, which is the fund that has the annex program, and Fund 12, we're going to focus on making all those final adjustments at second interim. We have made some adjustments in first interim to align expenditures, as I spoke about, but the actual SACs final document, we're going to adjust that as of second interim. So just so you know, you'll see a change between first interim and second interim in those funds, Fund 12 and Fund 63. Okay. And then also when we look at our multi-year, when we look at if expenditures are holding at projected rates, we show that there'll be deficit spending in the upcoming years. And some of that I'll talk to you in a bit, but we've captured for here that there's further review will be conducted to make certain it's not a structural deficit, right? We talk about a structural deficit, which is if your ongoing recurring expenditures are in excess of your ongoing recurring revenues, then you have a structural deficit you need to address. Some of our deficit comes from the fact we'll talk in a few moments about there was some carryover from funds as a result of the pandemic, funds that were not spent. So in order to spend down those dollars, you deficit spend in a particular year. So some of our deficits associated with that. Another variable for you too is that in our assumptions, we have built into our assumptions a very conservative growth in our property taxes in the out years at 3%. And looking back at the 5-year and 10-year averages for San Mateo County, the averages in the 5 and 10-year range, 5 years closer to 8%, and the 10-year range is about 5.2%. So it's likely as we walk down the path into next year and we look at the property tax growth forecast for next year, it's highly likely that it'll be higher than 3%, but we start to work with the tax assessor in the January timeframe to understand they work on something called the COF, the current active working file for the tax base. And so we'll start to get information from them beginning in January to build, and we'll incorporate it into second interim, we'll incorporate it into when we work with you on building the budget for next year. But for now, some of your assumptions have the 3% property tax growth, and it's possibly higher than that. And that will have a direct impact. Every 1% of property tax growth is roughly $1 million for the district. So a couple of percentage points equates to a couple $1 million for us, okay? So that will affect that as well. Other highlights we captured for you here, that in 1920, the unknown actuals, when they're completed, we have our prior year carrier identified. And we informed you of that carryover and the revenue adjustments at September 24th meeting, and that equated to $12 million. And we gave you a detailed listing of what all that was. And so we've incorporated that into our first interim as well too. The SACS file, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the SACS file we updated for Fund 63 at second interim to reflect the adjustments, to reflect the adjustments for the alignment of some of the expenditures with supplemental, and also to look at making adjustments to the revenue we anticipate for the current year for both the preschool and the annex program. We also have some remaining planning to do. One of the board members had asked if there were expiration dates associated with some of the CARES Act funding, and it ranges from the current year as of December of 20, and some of the funds it's permissible to spend them up through 2022. We're looking at in second interim, we'll have it reconciled as well too, to address the remaining dollars from the CARES Act, which are really the GEAR funds and the ESSER funds and the Prop 98 funds to cover some expenditures we know that we're going to incur. Okay, so that captures for you in this slide what some of those items are. Okay, and I know that there was some discussion as well too about looking at the dollars that have been spent associated with COVID, which is a broader umbrella. This is a subset of the overall costs and expenses. Your learning continuity attendance plan, David and I reviewed that prior to me putting together this slide for you tonight. And your learning continuity attendance plan is a much bigger snapshot of expenditures associated with COVID. But this is a subset of those items we thought might be helpful for you to understand. And this is looking at the learning loss mitigation funds, which is a portion of the overall CARES Act funds, but these are the funds that need to be spent by December 30th. So we've captured for you in this slide at a high level what some of those categories are. For example, we have the EPPE, masks, gloves, things of that nature, air purifiers, cleaning supplies, distance learning, professional development, fall reopening and planning, software, Zern, a whole variety of different softwares we bought for distance learning, Chromebooks, hotspots, document cameras, print shop, translation services, tech support in order to support the distance learning for families and students, some consultants associated with professional development. Some of our permanent subs we brought on board, we're covering some of those expenditures through learning loss mitigation funds. And then the Learning Hubs staff is covered by these funds. And then we also have some time cards for work. People did a whole variety of different tasks for us as we launched into the pandemic and provided support for students and staff and families. So a whole variety of different folks who are supported through that. So again, this is a subset of the overall COVID expenditures, and it's also integrated into your learning continuity and attendance plan. So we'll walk through some of your the highlights from a revenue and expense perspective. Here you'll see we've got in the first column the adopted budget, and we've got the first interim values. We captured for you what the variance between the first interim and the adopted budget is. And we provide you a very high level of what the reason for the variance is associated with. The first category, we've got some growth in our property taxes, which we've captured for you here. On the federal side, federal revenue, we've got the CARES Act funding value we've captured for you there. Other state revenue, we've got some deferred revenue grants, and local revenue, we've got some donations, which we've budgeted an increase for those things as well too. Okay, so that's a high level review of your revenue. On the expense side, we've walked through the salaries and benefits and services and contractors and other expenses as well too. We've captured for you a high level what some of the support we provided to COVID in the form of additional positions on both the classified and certificated side. We've got health and welfare increases. This is a reconciliation between what we had budgeted and what the final CalPERS actual increases were from a percentage perspective. That's incorporated into your budget for you at first interim. And then under books and supplies, services and other operating expenditures, again, I provided a subset of the list of expenditures on the previous slide, but that's integrated into these two categories as well too, and the adjustments for those expenses are incorporated here. Okay, capital outlay is a small adjustment for some of the capital outlay we've incurred since our adopted budget. Okay, so that's high level first interim expenses update. And then we go into multi-year projections from a revenue perspective. And then we'll go into expenditures perspective. We'll talk about reserves as well too. From an LCFF perspective, what we have built into this is some modest, primarily your property tax growth year over year. On the federal revenue side, we have a drop from this year into next year and the following year. It's related to the decrease in the CARES Act funding. State income, we've got some one-time money. I can give you more details on that, but there's a decrease year to year in some of the state income. And then the local income, it's really related to donations. Some of those adjustments are between the local income between first term and those two out years. Okay, so that's really high level for you of the expenditures. I should say revenues projection. And on the expenditure side too, this is where we talk about looking at some of the deficit year over year and where the property taxes can have an impact on whether or not we have as big of a deficit. And again, spending down some of those dollars, which we have as carryover, we have to spend those dollars to spend the dollars we got set aside in our reserve. Okay. So again, this has built into it at a high level. We do have, and you'll see in your narrative and your assumptions as well too, from a salaries perspective, we do have built in step and column increases, but we also have some FTE reductions associated with some of the decline in our actual enrollment built in 21-22. For classified and for benefits, we've kind of got the rolling step and column increases, the health and welfare anticipated increases. And the other item too, for benefits too, we'll see how this unfolds, but we do have, and we've captured for in the narrative as well too, we do have PERS and STIRS increases. PERS is a larger percentage increase in terms of the employer contribution. We've certainly seen that fluctuate greatly over the years, but in the third year out, we're looking at about a 5% increase relative to the current year increase, and that's upwards of $800,000 or $900,000, as I recall, in terms of an increase in expense. So we'll see again with the the record stock market trend for the past couple of years. It always kind of strikes me as the PERS increase continually goes up, but we'll see if that doesn't change as well too. Okay. And then some of the services, that's a bit of a reduction because of the COVID decrease. The other things are relatively flat. Okay. All right, multi-year projection from a ending fund balance perspective. Again, we've got these components of the ending fund balance. We've got restricted dollars. We do show that those dollars are being spent down over the years. The stabilization arrangement and the reserve for economic uncertainties. The board has a policy that speaks to having a combined 6% reserve. So this is just utilizing some SACS software language. The combined amount, you'll see that the stabilization arrangement of 3% is an equivalent dollar amount to your reserve for economic uncertainties, which is 3%. Those two numbers combined equate to 6%, which is what your reserve calls out. And then we'll talk about the assigned amount of your reserve in the next slide in a little more detail. So in here, you've got your assigned ending fund balance. These are categories that the board has had in the past. We do have some set asides for non-spendable items, vacation set aside from a liability perspective, this 1 month of payroll. We got some set asides for mold insurance and property liability insurance deduction. And then this last category here, which are these delays from the prior year due to COVID. This is aligned with the unrestricted portion of the dollar amount I spoke to in a previous slide, which we shared with you in the September timeframe when we did the unaudited actuals. What we conveyed is that we plan to spend those dollars down in conjunction with and align with what the original intent was to spend those dollars on. But COVID delayed those dollars being spent on things like professional development, on technology, on textbook adoption of some significant dollar amounts. And we went through that breakdown in September. We can go through that breakdown with you again if you're interested in seeing that. So that's kind of a high level snapshot for you. And then we talk about here how the cycle will continue for us. Oops, sorry, one too many slides. So again, we're going to be updating all funds at second interim. The governor's budget workshop is in January of 2021. We're hearing that we might likely see some positive information come out of that. So that's good news. It'll likely be in the form of some one-time dollars coming towards education. And then we will bring you back with the second interim report in March of 2021. Okay, so again, high level overview for you. We provide you a narrative in conjunction with the SACS report. The SACS report goes through all the different slides and gives you some more detailed information in a written format. And we wanted to capture for you here kind of some high level information from some of the highlights and where we started the year at. We've gone from, recall, we were back in last May talking about, as a result of the pandemic, we were looking at some drastic reductions. So, so the positive news is that CARES Act funding materialized and was real and has had a tremendous impact on our communities. And we're still planning for some of those dollars to be spent and through second interim, as I said a few moments ago. Okay, so happy to answer any questions you might have. Overall, we're bringing forward the recommendation you approve the first interim with a positive certification. Also in your board packet is a certification document too for the board to certify to the county and to the state. And I wanted to thank, by the way, before I forget, I wanted to thank the members of my business staff, and in particular, I want to thank Blanca Cervantes, who spent a tremendous amount of time putting this information together for us, really kind of an extraordinary effort, and also Cynthia Shea, who has helped us tremendously. So I want to thank them both for their tremendous dedication and assistance with compiling this information for us. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Patrick, for the presentation. I don't know if you want to switch back to the I guess the grid format or of the view. I'm going to open up to clarifying questions from the board trustees. Does anyone have any clarifying questions before we go to public comment?
I had one. I was just curious. Oh, Patrick, thank you for the presentation, by the way. I think this was very helpful to see it laid out like this, and I always like to dive in to the numbers, so thank you. I was curious about the COVID expenses. So in terms of the CARES Act money, how much money do we have left to spend, or have we spent beyond what we were given? And I was just curious how the funding relates to how much we've spent or will spend.
So the total, Allison, I provided tonight about, I want to say about $4.6 million is total spent. That's the portion through December. There is the total exclusive of the AB 602 funding I talked about earlier, combined is 7.3 less 6, so it's about $6.7 million total. We've accounted for about $4.6 million of that so far. And as I said, Dave and I are having active conversations about other things we've done that essentially those dollars are spent. The CARES Act funding is spent. It's a matter of how we're accounting for it.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay. That was all I had to clarify. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Any other clarifying questions? Okay, I do have a couple. Just in terms of the annex and the preschool reserves, in the slideshow and on the bullet, you talk about how the reserves are going to be exhausted to keep that program afloat. I'm assuming that's their individual fund reserves versus the whole district's reserve.
That's correct. Both those programs can have accrued reserves over the years, and they are self-contained, and so. But some of the alignment we've done with the annex program and those folks providing services to the learning hubs, had it not been for that, then we might have been looking at a deficit that we would have a conversation about whether there was a general fund contribution. But at this point, I don't believe there will need to be.
Great. Okay, thank you. And then one other question, just in terms of the other bullet point, you had mentioned something that caught my eye or my ear was you might be projecting at the moment a deficit spending in 21, 22, was that?
Right.
Right, and then the charts don't necessarily show that yet, but I'm assuming that because is it first interim and we'll have more details as we go
Again,
along.
yeah, we'll keep walking down the path, Ken, but again, in order to spend down those dollars that are set aside in a reserve, you have to deficit spend in a particular year. So you're spending from the reserve.
Yeah.
When you look at your recurring revenue, your recurring expenses in isolation, then if you spend down a reserve, you will deficit spend. So deficit spending in and of itself is not necessarily an issue, but if you have a structural deficit, that's what we'll spend more time diving into. And there are factors such as property taxes and other things which will influence that, but we have time to walk towards that as we walk towards 21-22. But we're giving you a kind of a glimpse up front now as we walk towards 21-22. We're going to spend more time looking at that moving forward.
So for clarification, prior to Measure V passing, we were having a structural deficit of, I believe it was, well, it could have been like $12 million a year or so, I think at the height or something like that. So
Joan would probably be able to, Joan's shaking her head, yes. I don't recall that number off the top of my head, but.
I don't recall the number right this evening, but yes, we had a structural deficit.
Prior to Measure V being adopted.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Does anybody else have any clarifying questions? Okay, why don't we open up to public comment, please, Peter?
Okay, anybody who would like to make public comment on this current agenda item, 8.1, please use the raise your hand function within Zoom now. Okay, President Chen, we have one currently. Julie, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for the presentation. I may have heard wrong, and so I'm wondering if somebody could perhaps clarify. Was it $500,000 spent on professional development? And I'm wondering if there could be a closer look at, not just a high level look at what that was, what that included. And again, apologies if I misheard. I'm actually trying to load my Google Classroom as I listen tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, President Chen, we have no other hands for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. Patrick, would you mind answering the question from Julie?
And Julie, I'll be happy to, we've got a whole detailed spreadsheet, Julie, be happy to share with you tomorrow. We can go through the details of that, how we've captured that and how it's labeled.
Fantastic. I'm assuming since she can't, she's
okay. Yeah,
she's
no,
not part
I'll,
of it. Yeah, yeah, she's not.
I'll send you to check me tomorrow.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Great. Why don't we open the floor up for board member comments? Any trustee comments on this item? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Anyone?
I'll make a, I was going to make a motion
Sure.
to approve the first interim report.
Great, thank you, Trustee
I'll
Proctor. Thank you, Trustee Corzo, for seconding. We'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Corzo?
Yes.
Trustee Proctor?
Yes.
Trustee Warren?
Yes.
Trustee Watkins?
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. So the first interim is approved. We will move on to item number 8.2, Lcff budget overview for parents.
Yes, this is, I'll share my screen with you as well too for the document you have. So this is the new Lcff budget overview for parents, and is being required that we incorporate that into first interim as a, this is typically built into the Lcff document itself, but because of the shifts in the Lcff timing and the adoption of the Lcff timing has been changed, there was a change in terms of what we need to provide to parents. This is typically done as part of the Lcff. When we go out, we meet with the community, we talk about this type of information. And so this is a simple snapshot. This is a boilerplate document that that the state has provided, and it incorporates information into it. So it's a consistent, common template that's used throughout the county and throughout school districts. And it captures information from parents and walking through high level information such as revenues, as you'll see here. And we've got a couple of comments in this too. It looks at budget expenditures. Here we have, for example, here's the total budget expenditures in the learning continuity attendance plan. And then again, the amount that's budgeted for high needs students. And then we also got in here too about increase or improve services for high needs students in the learning continuity plan for 2021. The last comment when Dave and I worked on this, we talked about how at the time of adoption, the district budget included a value for the LCFF supplemental grant that was based on the amount received in 1920. The adjusted supplemental amount is less than what was initially budgeted. The district's provided multiple resources to high needs students, including hiring additional counselors, purchasing of Chromebooks and hotspots, providing services, learning hubs, assigning TOS to provide support, etc. So again, it's got a recap here for the district's plan to spend the total newly updated LCFF supplemental grant in amount of $6.7 million on these high needs students. So again, we're plugging in information into the overall template that's provided. This is boilerplate language, which was typically done along with the LCAP. We're bringing it forward to you now as part of a separate document that's required that you take action in conjunction with the first interim for this particular budget overview document as well too.
Great, thank you, Patrick. Do we have any clarifying questions from the board? I can't see anyone, so I'm going to assume we know. Peter, why don't we go to public comment?
Actually, Patrick, can you take that down so that
Sure,
we
yep, so sorry.
So that we can be sure we can see?
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Any clarifying questions from the board? No? Okay, thank you. So let's go to public comment now, Peter, if you may.
Okay, anybody who's in our audience today who'd like to make public comment on the LCFF budget overview for parents, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Chin, we have no hands for public comment.
Great, thank you. I'll close public comment and open up to the floor to any board comments. If there are no board comments, I'd love a motion.
I just had a comment though I wanted to make, if that's okay. I sent this email in earlier, but I just want to say that this form, if it's truly for parents, I think that it could be a little bit more clear. And so like all these in the pie chart, the percentages don't really line up with any pie pieces. So I was wondering if there's some way that we could either do another version of this where it's a little more clear, or if there's a way to tweak this just so it's easier to follow.
We can certainly, if it's an ongoing process for us, Allison, no, I think we can certainly do that. I would expect that hopefully the pandemic's a past tense for us when we get into next year for the LCAP. But if it is an ongoing instrument we have to use, and we certainly can look into doing that.
Okay, I just wasn't sure how this is shared to parents. So if this was like an email or something, it might not mean very much to people the way it's looking, but if it's just something that goes on the website or goes in a file, then maybe it's not a big deal.
It was a very strange add-on.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't really attached to things, so we found it very odd also. But it is our information. I don't understand the name of it either, why it's called that, but
yeah, again, it's a format prescribed by the county and the state that has to be done in this format. So
right.
Okay.
But we agree with you. It's very odd, and so as many things are this year.
Huh.
It makes sense with the year.
Yeah.
Huh.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? If none, does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the LCFF budget overview for parents.
Thank you,
I'll
Trustee Watt.
second.
Thank you, Trustee Corzo, for the second. We'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Corzo?
Yes.
Trustee Proctor?
Yes.
Trustee Warren?
Yes.
And Trustee Watkins?
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. And so the motion has been approved, and we are now moving on to item 8.3, resolutions to exempt the school district from local zoning and planning ordinances.
Patrick, are you?
Oh, I
taking-
thought John, I thought that,
Oh, Tish is coming on. I see. Here she is. Okay. Hi, Tish. Can you hear us?
There we go. Can you hear me? I do not have a video button again, so
we can hear
I know
you.
what I look like. That's the important thing is that you can hear me.
Yes.
Oh, now I have a video button. There we go. So good evening, members of the board, President Chin, new trustee Lisa Warren, and newly elected Shara Watkins and Noelia Corzo for your second term. I'm delighted to be here tonight to handle this board item. Also, good evening to Dr. Rosas and to members. I realize it's a small group tonight, members of the San Mateo Foster City School District community of staff and parents. The purpose of this board agenda item is for the board to consider the adoption of three similar resolutions, but are different for each entity involved in order to exempt the district from zoning and other ordinances related to upcoming projects. This is a routine item that school districts across the state have adopted since 1959. It was first enacted by the legislature in 1959 as part of the government code, section 53094. As you know, those of you who've been on the board, we have done these exemptions for the Measure X projects with the exception of the Bowditch project, which is included tonight. We have many projects coming up. Most of them will be funded by Measure T, but there will be others from lesser funds such as developer fees. These three resolutions, one for each entity, San Mateo County, City of San Mateo, and the City of Foster City, will take care of all of those upcoming projects. The resolutions themselves, while similar, are specific to each entity. San Mateo County has one school in the district within the county boundaries. And as many of you know, that's Highland School. So you'll see in the resolution, which is number 16 for the County of San Mateo, that the general projects are called out. But in addition, we included, so that the county was aware, the new multipurpose building and the renovation and reorganization of the administrative offices, which will take place over the next 10 years. They are in your immediate priorities, so they will happen sooner than that. In terms of the City of San Mateo, again, we've called out the general projects that are in the categories of projects that are in the facilities master plan, but we've also spoken to specific projects, namely the multipurpose rooms that will be added to Lead, Meadow Heights, and Parkside. And then in the case of Foster City, which is resolution 15, we have spoken again to the general projects that will be happening across the district, including at many of the Foster City schools, as well as the Bowditch Measure X project and the Measure T project, which is, as you know, rebuild, build, and renovate. So with the adoption of these tonight, which is one of the few parts of the code that requires a 2/3 vote, the next step upon your approval will be to notify the cities and the county of the board's action. And then the cities and the county individually have a right to petition the Superior Court for the county to say if they believe it was a capricious act on the board's part. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I want to add one last thing in that this does not exempt us from everything concerning the entities involved. We still are responsible for consulting and pulling permits where needed for public encroachment on the right-of-way grading sometimes, and anything else that could impact the drainage system or the off-site non-school district property surrounding the school district sites. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you, Tish. Clarifying questions from the board? Anyone? No? Okay, why don't we go to public comment, please?
Okay, anyone who's attending tonight would like to make public comment on the resolutions to exempt a school district from local zoning and planning ordinances, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. President Chin, we have no hands for public comment.
Great, thank you, Peter. I'll officially close public comment and open the floor up for board comments. Does anybody have a comment? If not, we do need a motion for this one as well.
Make a motion to approve the resolutions to exempt the school district from local zoning and planning ordinances.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins. Do we have a second? Sorry, was that Trustee Warren? Did you say something without your mic on, or?
Yes, I did, because I keep forgetting to unmute myself. Yes, I second.
Thank you, Trustee Warren. It's okay. We'll do roll call vote. Trustee Corzo?
Yes.
Trustee Proctor?
Yes.
Trustee Warren?
Yes.
And Trustee Watkins?
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. The resolutions have passed. And now we will move on to item number 9, board member statements and requests for future agenda items. Does anybody want to comment? No? No?
I'll make a comment. I wanted to just resurface the comment that Julie made about potentially making some space on the agenda each meeting for the associations to have some time. So I think that's a good idea. And I think Chelsea had a recommendation about the SELPA, the CAC, and looking at the members and determining whether those are active members or if we should consider some others. That's all.
Thank you, Trustee Proctor. Anyone else? No? Trustee Corzo?
I just wanted to create some space real quick for us all. Well, I think definitely for Shara and I, and Ken, you joined us not long after we started, but I just wanted to reflect on the past, our past term. I'm really grateful for the past 3 years and the opportunity to serve on this board. It hasn't always been easy. Can be, it's a lot of work. It can be very overwhelming, and it's a lot of responsibility, but I'm so, just grateful for, the work that we've done and the work that we will do. I feel really excited, and like there's many good things ahead for our district, our community, and above all else, our kids. I know that we are making a difference, and at every level in our school district, there are positive changes happening, and I'm just, grateful to be a part of it. And I don't know if my son was able to hop on and watch. I'm hoping he is watching, but I wanted to thank him for swearing me in. He's a product of our school district, and I think he did really well. There were some big words in there that he did, he handled that pretty well. And he's also a huge part of why I ran for this board, and, my motivation on a daily basis for, finding some way to make everything work. So I want to thank him, and yeah. I love my baby boy, and he's gonna be 10 soon, so that's crazy. But yeah, I also just wanted to thank my family and my community for supporting me and for supporting the work that we've done and getting involved and making comments, whether they were positive or negative or controversial or, you know, whatever they were. I think that whether, you know, things get tense or not, it's all part of the process of how we dialogue, how we get things out in the open, how we work through them. So like I said, I'm excited to continue to do that, and let's see how it goes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Trustee Corzo. We're glad that you re-upped, put your name in again for a second term, just like Trustee Watkins. Does anyone else have any other comments? I just want to I'll close it and just, again, thank you, Trustee Corzo, for steering the ship during our crazy COVID year. Although it's not over, but it was the bulk of the year, essentially. And then I also wanted to welcome Trustee Warren. It is something to be said to throw your hat into this during these crazy COVID times, where things constantly change week by week, if not day by day. So I wanted to welcome you to the board as well. With that, does anybody else want to have any other comments, or shall we move on to our future meeting dates? Any other last minute comments?
I would.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll say something. I just want to thank everybody on the board and Dr. Rosas for such a warm welcome. This is such a new, experience for me, and it's quite a different thing than running a PTA. So I am looking forward to learning more about this role and being more of an advocate for the kids in our district. So I'm looking forward to working with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Warren. So shall we move on? Agenda number 10, future meeting dates.
And I am not seeing my future meeting dates, so I will not read them to you, but you know the listing, and our next meetings will actually be after the holidays. So I wanted to wish everyone a happy holiday. I hope that you have a time to breathe and be with your family. And then if you see friends, see them over Zoom. Be careful, be safe, but also have some fun. We've put in a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I'm hoping that you will have an opportunity to rest. And that goes out to all of our community and our staff. Everyone has worked so diligently, and so it's taken a tremendous amount of energy. So I just hope everyone has an opportunity to rest, rejuvenate, take a walk, take some time. So happy holidays, everyone.
I'll just echo that. Thank you, Dr. Rosas, for everybody. I wish you all happy holidays, and Dr. Rosas, to all of your team and everyone, in the school district and the community. I hope you all have a happy holidays as well. So we're at adjournment. Does anyone want to make a motion for adjournment? Trustee Corzo.
I motion.
Thank you, Trustee Corzo.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins. Roll call vote. Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Proctor.
Yes.
Trustee Warren. I think that was yes, but the mic was off. Yes.
Yet again. Yes.
Yeah. It's okay. And Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. We are now officially adjourned at 7:53. Again, happy holidays to everybody, and we'll see you in the new year, unless we need to meet again earlier. Sorry.
Everybody,
Bye.
happy holidays.
Night.
Happy holidays.
Night.